Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my organization, the Inter-African Committee, I would like to welcome you all to this very important gathering with a clear objective of working towards zero tolerance to female genital mutilation. The day is special because we are focusing on a real serious problem that is an actuality of our days. As you know, millions of girls, 2 million a year according to statistics, are being mutilated every year. The most sensitive part of their body is cut. And this in the name of tradition and value to be respected. In this day and age, when human rights principles have proliferated, when gender equality is being recognized as essential for peace and development, it is unacceptable to see a practice like FGM continue to victimize African girls and some others. And this practice, as you know, is gaining areas, territories. We used to think it was Africa that was the continent that was concerned, but now because of human movements, migration, we find it at the doorsteps of Europe, America, Canada, even as far as Japan, Australia and Japan. So it has become a global problem. How to contain it is an issue, and how to eradicate it or to stop it, to use the terminologies, is a challenge. We in the Inter-African Committee, we have been dealing with the issue for over 26 years. But the problem is still with us, although we have registered some success stories. Working at the community level with different groups, stakeholders, at the regional level working with the African Union, and at the international level making our voices heard. And one of the success stories is that now there are many actors. National NGOs at the national level, many. International NGOs. As you see, today's event is organized in collaboration with UNFPA, UNICEF, UNHCR. And every year we organize this event in collaboration with the IPU, International Parliamentarian Union, IOM, International Organization for Migration, and the State of Geneva, together with the Inter-African Committee. So it shows the extent of the problem. It shows the need for harmonizing our work, because there are many issues at stake when we talk about FGM. It's not only a health problem, it's an economic problem, it's a political problem, it's a migration problem, it's also, of course, health. So we all working in different areas. It's a developmental problem as well. So all of us working in all these different fields have to come together and synergize our action. The theme of today's observance of February 6 is building bridges in order to reach zero tolerance. Why? Because if we continue to work in our small corners, the issue will still be with us, and we will be wasting a lot of energy and resources. But if we build bridges within the continent, within the country, but also across the continent, between Africa, Europe, America, and the United States, our voices will be stronger, our resources will be properly utilized, and our actions will have more impact. Africa can influence Europe, and Europe can influence Africa, especially when it comes to policy and action, and also to mobilize resources. Here I think we really have to seriously reflect on this building bridges and see concretely in which areas we can start. I'm glad that many of you have come from far to reflect on this. There is Euronet, with whom we would like to work. It's a very important organization working at the European level. We are Inter-African Committee. So there, at least we can start concretely on how to bridge this building, to build the bridge. But it should not be only non-governmental organizations. We really need the commitment of governments in policy and action. As I said earlier, it's not instruments that we miss now. Several regional, the African Protocol, international instruments, conventions are there. It's a question of bringing them down to action to make a positive difference in the lives of these women. So without much ado, I would like to welcome you all most sincerely to this event, Zero Tolerance to Female Genital Mutilation, a day that was declared in 2003, very modestly, but now it has been recognized worldwide and adopted by the United Nations. So, welcome again, and let's, when we finish by the end of the day, let's come up with concrete proposals, really, 3, 4, 5, on how to build our bridge and how to consolidate our network. So we'll be going around collecting your proposals in order for us to work out some kind of, not a declaration, but a conclusion from this meeting. Thank you. As you see, our program is quite heavy. So I will not take much time. Well, I've already taken a lot of time. But without much ado, may I call on Mr. Anders Johnson, Secretary General of the IPU, who has been, the organization has been a long time partner, and Mr. Johnson has always been with us. May I call on you to give us your statement? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it is, I'm very pleased to be with you here this morning. The International Day of Zero Tolerance to Female Genital Mutilation is, of course, one of those moments when we can take some time to think and to reflect on what the situation is and how we want to modify it. My perspective on this is as Secretary General of an organization that is concerned with law, with the making of the law, with the observance of the law, and with the machine that creates the law, the parliament. And from that perspective, of course, I welcome the fact that a growing number of countries have passed laws to recognize that this is a gross violation breach of human dignity, declare illegal the practice. Few of the countries, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Senegal, they have all enacted anti-FGM legislation. So too have a number of European countries. And of course, all of these countries are fighting with different degrees of success, trying to curb and hopefully bring to an end the practice of female genital mutilation within their borders. I think the link between the law and its observance is central to our discussion on building bridges in the area of FGM. Too often, in our experience, it is not a link at all, but a gap. Too often the bridge has not been built, or if it has, it's very frail. A law that cannot be put into practice is not a particularly good law. One country that we are concerned with, where FGM is a practice and where the IPU is currently working very hard, is Mali. In this country, FGM is not illegal. We are doing what we can to provide assistance to the parliament in Mali to seek laws to declare illegal this practice. In a democracy, of course, a successful law depends on popular consent. The people must have a sense that the laws are theirs. Again, we're talking about building bridges. To ourselves as outsiders, it's hard not to be appalled by FGM. The practice entails such an outrageous invasion of a young woman's intimacy, and it is perpetrated at a time of such terrible vulnerability that the traditional arguments put forward to defend it seems absurd at best, and at worst deeply perverse. There is no authoritative religious text that declares a woman or a girl can only be pure enough for prayer when she has had her genitals stabbed. And that, of course, as we all know, is what we are talking about, whether it is in Mali or anywhere else. But it is relatively easy to sit in our hygienic conference halls and pontificate about other people's problems. The gradual process for winning people's hearts and minds takes much more. In Mali, we have set up a training workshop with the National Parliament. We provided training to MPs in June of last year. We are now working with the same members of Parliament to help them go out into the communities. We are going with them to Bamako, Gaze, Sikasso, and Sego, where FGM is endemic. These visits have marked the start of a public sensitization and consultation process prior to debate in Parliament on the anti-FGM bill. The Parliament, in other words, is reaching out to everybody concerned to try and expand the general acceptance of the parliamentary bill. Traditional and religious leaders, health professionals, civil society, and of course, the media. In other words, laws are only a start. FGM is profoundly entrenched in the social, economic, and political structures of some communities. Laws have to trigger social change, which can then lead to the abandonment of the practice. And that is the challenge for the lawmaker. And for that, the politicians have to speak up. The great thing is that bridges are being built and nobody is alone. At this juncture, let me thank you, the Inter-African Committee, as well as UNFPA, UNICEF, and UNHCR, for organizing this event and for inviting us in the IPU to take a modest part. As you will have understood, for us in our organization, FGM and legislation is an important issue for us, and we are not new to it. We started several years ago with a conference in Africa where 21 African parliaments took part, where we discussed the role the parliaments need to play in abandoning female genital mutilation. In the declaration of the outcome document of that event, these members of parliament pledged to enact laws and to prevent abuses, to provide assistance to women who have fallen victim to mutilation, and of course also to punish the perpetrators of such acts. The declaration goes a step further, and it calls for very strict enforcement of laws, it calls for information campaigns and any other measures that can be taken to promote greater support for abandoning the practice. Over the last 15 years, 19 African countries and 12 European countries have enacted laws or taken legislative measures to address FGM. That's important. In 2009, at a conference we organized on migration and violence against women in Paris, parliamentarians discussed the threat of genital mutilation as a factor in granting refugee status in European countries. They discussed the extraterritorial scope of anti-FGM laws, how to punish abuses committed abroad against women and girls who otherwise live in Europe. And they also reviewed training courses for people who work with migrant communities, and particularly the health professionals. In other words, we're also addressing the issue in relation to migration. And as we all know, the migration of communities that practice FGM has led to the problem appearing in Europe and in other destination regions. It is, of course, also important to build bridges among African countries themselves and to develop an inter-regional dialogue on FGM. This is vital in order to promote a regular exchange of information aimed at harmonizing approaches, harmonizing laws, and harmonizing initiatives. And as I think we've said much better than I can do, we cannot stop FGM on our own. But if we continue to build bridges in Africa and in Europe, there is every reason to believe that FGM can be eliminated in one generation. And I'm convinced that this meeting today is an opportunity for us to commit ourselves once more to working towards this.